Welcome back to RecalibrAgency. I'm pleased today to be joined by Steve Guberman. He is founder of Outsight Consulting, and we're going to brainstorm today about strategies for reluctant sellers. This is something that we're both really passionate about. So, Steve, why don't you introduce yourself a little bit more?
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. Excited to kind of team up agency coach to agency coach and put our collective brains together and help as many people as we can. As you said, I'm an agency coach. I've been doing this for a few years now, and my background and experience is about 20 years of agency world experience, 10 of which I owned my own agency that I built up and exited through an acquisition. And then I spent the next 5 years with that acquiring agency. We relaunched them as a full service communications firm, and I got to build out another creative and digital team, build out all their systems and processes and tools, and even cross pollinate our services between the traditional PR clients and the digital and creative clients that I brought over, and vice versa. So it was a pretty exciting 5 years. And now I've been working with agencies across the country, helping them find their true north, find their profitability and, figure out how to make things run better and not be so tied to a ball and chain.
Absolutely, because we both full well know that your agency can quickly become a burden instead of the
Yeah.
blessing that you wanted it to be. Part of that is not having enough sales, not having enough new projects coming in the door, feeling like your cash is just dwindling down as all of your expenses come flying out the door. And so we really want to talk through some strategies for selling, especially when it comes to people who have grown into leadership positions at their firms,
Mhm.
that you were really good at delivering on creative, delivering on marketing strategy, and helping to lead teams that way. But now you're in this weird position where you were really good at those things. Maybe you have now founded your own agency or you've grown into another kind of role at an existing job, but now you're in charge of some biz dev and getting more projects in the door. And so navigating that transition, those challenges is what we're going to talk about. So I want to kick it over to you first, Steve. What would you say is the biggest hindrance to sales for someone who's not comfortable in
Mm.
going out and kind of knocking on doors, doing traditional, outbound sales? What do you think some of the biggest challenges are?
Well, you kind of nailed it in that segue into the question where I'm really good at strategy or doing design or whatever. And now suddenly I've launched an agency because I love doing that thing, but I don't maybe get to do that thing as much because now I've got to do sales. And there's Seth Godin has a book. I think it's Money, Where Do Clients Come From or something. Yeah, maybe he's not the guy for that, but yeah, they're not just going to magically appear because I'm really good at this craft and I hung up a shingle. So how do I go get them? To be honest, that early stage client base, family, friends, your immediate LinkedIn network, really just getting your positioning nailed down, letting people know what you do, what the value add is that you have, who you do it for, building out that true statement of, I am so and so and I do X for Y, and really owning what that statement is. I bring me back to like early freelancing days when I was working a full time job and freelancing. And when I won that first project that I hunted out, I sought this client out, I put a proposal together from cookie cutter from AIGA or, wherever I got that proposal format from and actually won it. And first check went in the bank, it jacked my self esteem up massively. So getting that first easy win, I think is really important. And then trying to build upon that, what are you asked, what are like the true things you need? Systems. I believe in systems. I don't really think that things can grow or work successfully without a true system. And so if that's a notepad system, a whiteboard system, a CRM system, a spreadsheet, a whatever, you know, the people or person that's doing this biz dev, they need a tool that can help them facilitate it. So, you know, I think, building a list of who you want to go after, the kind of people you want to work with, whatever it's the industry or the size business, or, I want to work with construction companies that have 5 or more trucks or, whatever that size is. And then building a list of how do I find them and where are they? And, that system should include who am I going after? What am I offering? And then how do I follow up with them and check in with them and communicate to them?
Agree, Steve. because there's kind of this weird situation that arose after inbound marketing really took off,
Yeah.
where everyone's like, "Oh, I'll just do inbound marketing, and then people will come to me, and it'll be great, and then I won't have to
Yeah.
sell." I hate selling, but it's just unfortunately that's not the way it works. And so breaking that mindset of I'll just really focus on inbound marketing, I'll produce a lot of really great content, and then magically people will find me and love me and they'll hire me and it'll be great. That's just not something that's sustainable. And if you
Yeah.
want to build your agency, if you want to get a consistent sales pipeline going, inbound marketing can definitely be a part of it, but you're not gonna have people knocking down your door right away. You have to actually seek them out, build yourself up as an authority in your space.
Hmm.
First of all, define your space to begin with. You have to niche
Yeah.
down
Right.
and go from there. What else do you see as some hindrances that have kind of culturally swept up agencies into a path that isn't really helping them?
I think relying on like yesterday's easy win, right? We can't get caught in, and I call it opportunistic growth, referrals, word of mouth. Those are the best kinds of clients to get, but you can't build a pipeline on that. You can't build projections on revenue stream on referrals and word of mouth. So the hindrance there is, oh, I've got business coming in because, this client referred me to this client and the pipeline is strong because of that. You can't rely on that. You can't rest your laurels. That's the word I was trying to come up with. So you mix that in with the inbound, you mix that in with networking. People are, going to in-person or online networking events. You mix that in. It's got to be a handful of tactics. And, occasionally you'll get pieces from everything working. And when you find what really works, just like in digital advertising or the work we do for our clients, when you find what works, you double down on it. And when you realize that group that I'm networking in doesn't work because it's all dead end leads or it's not the right audience or it's not the industry I want to be in, you leave it and you go to another group or you go somewhere else where you know that the client base that you want are hanging out. But yeah, you can't, I advise clients all the time. You can't just rely on word of mouth and referrals. You can't wait for somebody to come knocking on your door because it's not going to happen. And if it does, great. It's an added perk, but it's not necessarily going to be something that they can rely on.
Yeah, absolutely. And building in that consistency, it's a practice. It's something that you do regularly. It's like going to the gym. You can't just go to the
Yeah.
gym for 8 hours in one day and expect to
Yeah.
see results. You're actually going to kill yourself. um, and you need to do
Yep.
it in little increments over time. That might look like sending 30 LinkedIn connection requests per week. That might look like going to 4 events per year. That might look like doing 12 webinars per year. You have to spread it out, make sure that you're addressing biz dev in a smart, sustainable way and not just waiting until it's a problem. Because that's
Yeah.
another thing that happens a lot is, oh my gosh, our pipeline is dry. We need projects for October and there's nothing in the pipeline. What are we going to
Right.
do? And then you're like, okay, biz dev, let's do it.
Yeah.
And you hunker down and
No.
you crank it out and you might get a project in the door for October, but maybe you don't even get one till December or next year. So, what do you think that people can do to build a new system where they can then have that consistency built in?
I think when you're busy, you got to keep doing business development. Don't take your foot off the gas. Like when it's good, make it better. And to your point, when we're drumming up business because business is slow is when we seem desperate and we take projects we don't want that are probably less profitable, out of our niche, out of our scope of service that we want to stay in our lane for. So it's important to be planning ahead. It's important to be working strategically with clients. So you can, if agencies are working with clients, let's say in Q4 or Q3, what does next year's pipeline look like? What does next year's budget look like? It's never too soon to plan for further down the road. But I believe in using a CRM. There's very inexpensive slash free ones that are awesome. And I don't want to plug, specific names, but there are CRM tools that will allow you to see down the road what the pipeline looks like, 30, 60, 90, 6 months, 9 months out. What projects or retainer work can we plan on closing? What's the probability of each of those deals? And when was the last time I spoke to Susan Jones from Acme Co. to find out about the process or the progress of the deal. So using a tool like that to nurture deals, but also using a tool like that to remind people that you exist and remind people what you do and who you are and why you should stay front of mind for them. I think using a tool, there's no agency too small, a solopreneur with a handful of freelancers or, an agency that's part of a holding company should all be, and everything in between should all be using some sort of a CRM. Most start out with a spreadsheet. Great. That works. Have a tool, use it, rely on it. So I think that's super important.
Yeah, and there's something really important about a CRM, a customer relationship management tool.
Mhm.
It's the fact that your customers are in there too. And your existing customer base is a prime opportunity for biz dev as well.
Yeah.
And it can be forgotten. I'm not entirely sure why it's forgotten so much, but it seems to be forgotten a lot more than it's utilized,
Mhm.
where you're just busy delivering and you're like, okay, we're gonna get this out for the client, we're gonna keep going and you forget to upsell and identify new problems that they need to solve and then create offerings that match those things.
Yeah.
And it's really important to look inward at what your customers need, what your customers want, instead of chasing after what your competitors are doing, especially when you've got a
Yeah.
solid book of business that trusts you already.
Well, so two important things there. One is CRM will also help me remember if I haven't worked for so and so client in a while and suddenly I got no business coming in, hit up those people that I haven't worked for in 6, 9, 12 months. Hey, want to check in? Do you have anything coming up? Can we help you? As opposed to cold calling, which is a much longer lead time cycle. So using the CRM to check back in with old clients. So I believe in time blocking and I'm a big proponent of that. I encourage clients to do it. And it's just something that I love talking about. Putting a repeating task or time block on my calendar every Monday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m. while I'm having my coffee, I am on my CRM, or every Tuesday, because I work better at night from 4 p.m. to 5 p.m., I am in my CRM doing a thing. So time blocking and respecting it, not just being like, that's not a paying client. I'm not going to do it today. Set the time, respect the time, and do the task that you commit to. So I'm going to call 10 people every Thursday. I'm going to, check in on, rotting fruit proposals, on the vine every Tuesday. Whatever that time is, use it to your advantage, commit to it and own it. And that way you've got regularity of I'm in my CRM, checking in with people, checking in on open business, closed business. And it also, kind of leads to the topic of account-based marketing of how well are you working and building relationships and partnerships with your clients? Or are you just a vendor where they say, make this red and you're making it red? And if they really trust you and they really, really respect the relationship, there's opportunity to grow those accounts over time and turn them into bigger books of business.
Absolutely, even for project-based
Yeah.
agencies, because it's a lot easier when you're on a retainer model to continue to grow client accounts. But when you're doing project-based, they can kind of fall through the cracks, I've noticed. So when you're doing project-based, having continued touch points is probably one of the biggest things that you can do even after a project is wrapped up to then roll into that next project and make sure that you don't become irrelevant to that customer
Yeah.
that you had already done work for.
Yeah. Well, yeah. And also I think that makes, a great point that the difference between project-based agencies or clients and retainer-based, the latter can help prevent some of those dips in revenue. And so not to say that 100% of the revenue needs to be on retainer based engagements, but certainly if 30, 40, 50% of the annual revenue is on retainer, it's much less of a dip during those drought seasons. Whereas we've got projects, hopefully they're overlapping, nothing end, not all of them end at the same time. And then we're all sitting around twiddling our thumbs. I've got 5 developers with nothing to do next week. What am I going to do? I think we see the same post all the time in some of those groups that we're in where it's like, hey, I've got, WordPress developers available for the month of August. It's like somebody's pipeline is really messed up in that case.
Yes, absolutely. And when that happens, not only are you then tapping into cash reserves that should have
Yeah.
been going to something totally different just so that you can retain your talent, but you're
Yeah.
also communicating to your team that there's not necessarily consistent work here. And that might put
Yeah.
some of them on edge and cause them to start looking at other opportunities. So you really have to be mindful of that consistent sales process that you're investing in because that's your job. I mean,
Yeah.
if you had an employee doing this for you, you would want to make sure that they were doing what they were supposed to be doing. And you need to hold yourself to that same standard of actually sending
Yeah.
outreach, actually going to events, actually participating in virtual communities and events as well as, trying to hone in on your position so that you're investing in the right activities. That is also really crucial so that you're not spread too thin.
Yeah. No, I fully agree. And especially with the volatile job market we have now where holding on to talent and acquiring new talent is really challenging. That pipeline is vital to maintain that consistency of work and building the sense of confidence in the agency that, employees look for.
Right. And even if you're doing the main biz dev as the owner, your team, your people make the place, I always say.
Yeah.
And so your team should be the face of your agency and should be helping to showcase the expertise that you have in an industry, the expertise that you have delivering on a specific platform, the
Hmm.
strategies that you give to clients as a team. That's really important. So don't just completely disconnect your delivery teams from your sales and marketing efforts either. You want to involve them and make it a team effort because
Yeah.
people are hiring experts. They're hiring for a
Yeah.
solution and a strategy, and that comes from people. It's in their head, and you
Yeah.
know that. Clients kind of know it. Sometimes they know it more than other times. But make sure
Yeah.
that you're tapping into that as well. It doesn't all have to fall on you, even if you're accountable for the result.
That's a great point. And something that I've worked with a lot of people on, something that we used to do at our agency was, and Gino Wickman talks about in Traction, building the Dream 100 list and getting the team involved in that and saying, what brands do you love? What types of industries do we want to break into? Who do you want to work for? And really getting them to be a part of that list creation of who do we want to hunt after and who do we want to attack? And maybe, you know, everybody's going to say we want to work for Apple or Nike or, you know, the next awesomest brand. And maybe you can't get to that level yet, but you can work towards it and say, what are our affiliations and who do we really, what kind of things are we into? We're outdoor enthusiasts. Great. Let's work towards the REIs and, the Cotopaxies and that of the world and really build on what their true like affiliations of activities are that they love. Just get them all gung ho for it. Most employees don't have the hunter mindset. They're hired because they have the mindset of I want to do a thing. And when you can empower them to say, "Oh, I didn't realize my uncle works for so and so. Maybe we can talk to them." But when you get them involved in what that process looks like, you open up the door to they might have some of the talents that the owner needs to do some of that hunting process as well.
Have you seen any interesting strategies that agencies have used to build out their ABM top 100 dream list?
So I would say they're not exclusively the same thing, but so ABM, account based marketing, working with the account team to be in the company vision, be in the company strategy, be a part of next year's planning or end of year fiscal planning. In a lot of cases, that's on larger client bases, but try and just plug yourself into the company. Back in the day, you used to be able to walk around the campus of a school of a large organization. And that way you can say, oh, well, I know this person in this department, but I now want to meet this person in that department. So that was easier to do before everything was digital and remote. Now it's much more difficult. So that part of, account-based marketing and helping plug yourself and make the agency a really vital part of down the road strategy, down the road events, projects, products, things like that is vital. And that's really reliant on a really strong account team that knows how to build those relationships. Hey, Peter, we're going to be in town next week. Can we grab lunch? Can we grab dinner? Like, you're not going to be in town, but make it a point to be in town. Do you know what I mean? That kind of stuff. Building that Dream 100 list and really getting the team involved says, we're really good in these 3 or 4 niches. Are there neighboring niches that we can use that experience to build upon in the next space? So, and then building out a list of 50 companies, 100 companies, whatever the company list looks like that we want to work for. And then to break it down into bite size. You use the phrase of, take a bite out of the elephant together. Break it down into smaller bites. So every week I'm going to take 10 companies and I'm going to find 10 people at each of those companies and I'm going to contact all 100 of those people. So that Dream 100 list turns into now 1,000 or more people that you can contact. LinkedIn Sales Navigator makes it so simple to do so. You can find every CMO at every Fortune 500 or every mid-level mid-market company and get their contact info. I mean, the digital tools we have are ridiculous now to find. You could probably get their home addresses if you want. So I'm not saying do that, but I'm saying you probably could.
In the voice of our listeners right now, I'm objecting because, Steve, I don't like doing sales. I don't want to be on LinkedIn all the time. I want to be building website. I want to be delivering on
Yeah.
marketing strategy. Isn't there another way?
You can outsource biz dev. You can hire somebody to do it, bring somebody in-house. Both have pros and cons, obviously. In most cases on the smaller agency side, it's going to be the owner who wears the hat of biz dev, as well as 19 other hats. And so that's got to be one of their key, as you said earlier on, one of their key responsibilities is build a pipeline and own that. As the agency grows, are there more people that want to jump into the biz dev team? The last agency that I was at that acquired mine, we were about 20 people and the senior leadership team was all, committed as a team, as a group responsible for business development. And we would meet once a week, talk about new opportunities, what's in the pipeline, how do we close this deal? How do we interrupt this RFP process and disrupt it and get ahead of it, that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you hate sales, that's a thing. The other option is outsource it and work with companies that will either do matchmaking, will do cold calling and appointment setting for you, or will act on your behalf as straight up, I'm from Acme Design Co. Can we talk about your design needs?
Yeah, absolutely. And you really just have to weigh what's going to be best for you and your agency
Yeah.
because there's cost associated to both. There's cost if you're the one doing biz dev. There's cost if you're outsourcing it. So you have to evaluate it, but it has to happen. You have to choose one or the other. Either you have to do it or someone's got to be doing it for
Yeah.
you. Now, let's talk about hiring someone to do biz dev for your agency because this can
Mhm.
be really tricky. It can create problems, but it can also help you be wildly successful.
Mhm.
So, what do you think are some of the best ways to vet potential salespeople for your agency? And at what point should you even consider hiring someone?
So I'll work backwards on that. At what point to consider hiring somebody is, I think, reliant on what the owner wants to be doing. And it's just part of what my belief is that we open an agency because we love doing a craft. And now I find out a year, 2, 3 years in, I'm not doing the thing that I love doing. And so how do I get back to that? We make a list of the things that we do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, and what do I want to offload to somebody else based on the economics of it, based on the time that I have available, based on what I just suck at doing and I don't want to do it anymore. If sales falls in any of that, then all right, I can step back, I can delegate, I can let go. Owners typically have a tough time with the letting go of delegating part. So finding somebody that you can trust that can really own this and take hold of it and has that hunter mentality is a great way to do that. Finding somebody that has agency experience is, I think, vital. There are salespeople out there all day long that will say, I can sell an ice to Eskimos, and that's great. Go to the North Pole and do that. If you can't speak the lingo about what we do, the value that we bring as agencies to clients, if you don't, you know, know where to find potential clients, if you don't have a Rolodex, that ice to ice, Eskimos really is just not important to me. So finding somebody that's
Yeah.
got the experience, I think is pretty important.
Yeah, absolutely. And even too, you can get creative.
Yeah.
If you have honed in on a specific industry vertical that you serve, find people from that industry that know the industry lingo as
Yeah.
well and teach them what they need to know about how to sell your agency services because
Yep.
they're going to be able to build relationships and leverage a network that they probably already have as well to get more business into your pipeline.
Yeah. I've also seen account managers, account directors grow into biz dev opportunity roles. Maybe it's a hybrid on a smaller agency where, more people have to wear multiple hats. And so you can bring an account person. But absolutely, I've also seen ex clients from the brand side come over to the agency side and become really stellar biz dev account people. So they've got the industry experience and expertise, and they can own it. Absolutely.
Yep, totally. People are looking for solutions. They don't want to be sold. They want to know
Yeah.
that they're going to get the right outcome. So
Yeah.
anyone that you can bring into that sales conversation that can help assure prospects of the outcome that they're going to get, the better you're going to be off there.
Yeah. I
Um,
also think it's important to invest in those people. So a lot of owners might think, well, I'll just offer them a really high commission rate and no base salary. And that person is going to be trudging along, stressed that I've got bills to pay and I'm not closing anything. So find the right mix between a base salary and incentivizing them with commission. But also invest in them with sales training, whether it's Sandler or any of these other guys out, sales schools out there. Not that you want somebody actually, you just said it, selling like you're a car salesman selling, but knowing, how to go for no early so you're not wasting time, knowing some of the simple psychological strategies of, giving three options, knowing that they're going to go for the middle one, like simple things like that that you can pick up in a master class or whatever. So really invest in this person that you want to help grow the business. They are going to be the key to those goals that the agency owner sets as the visionary of the company of, I want to be a $5 million company in 5 years. Cool. How are we going to get there? Oh, Tom over there is going to make it happen because he's going to make it rain, but he has no training. Tom's not going to do it without any training. So invest in the people that are going to help grow the business, I think.
Training and accountability too, because
Yeah.
good old Tom, if you let him go off into the grasslands to go hunting with no accountability or structure in place, how do you know what's happening? How does he know what's
Right.
happening? I mean, you could be losing viable leads all day long because nothing's
Yeah.
being tracked in a CRM. Again, even if it's
Exactly.
just a spreadsheet, you've got to track something as well.
Yeah.
Now, what one last thing that I want to dive into is, especially for smaller agencies and people just getting started, is this concept of imposter syndrome as they're trying to sell. So, yeah, it's a big problem, and it leads
Mhm.
to undervaluing their solution. It leads to not reaching out to people and just getting paralyzed. It leads to focusing on the wrong offerings because you're not
Mhm.
actually digging into customer need. So, what would you say to the person really struggling with imposter syndrome and that's holding them back from selling?
Yeah. Well, I think the first and most important thing is that they are not you. I know people at, you know, 10-digit agencies that struggle with imposter syndrome and everything down to the solopreneur. I've struggled with it. I still sometimes like, I'm not going to put this out to the world. It's going to be garbage. So I think, the knowing that we're not unique is so important. But then there's, so what? Now what? So I know what I've got. I know what's bothering me. How do I get through it? A sounding board, a mastermind group, a mentor, a coach, and it doesn't even need to be somebody that you pay. I went to design school with 50 people. I'm still friends with maybe 5 or 10 of them. Through the early days of freelancing, I would call them up and be like, hey, how much would you charge for this? Oh, really? I'm not that off base. Or, hey, do you have a proposal template that I could use? Or how would so asking somebody, there are any number of free groups for startups out there that you can bounce things off. Do it. Listen, family, friends, find somebody, build that network of people that are going to be your cheering squad, your hype girl, whatever you want to call it, to help elevate like where you're at is where you're supposed to be, and don't undervalue yourself. I always say, all right, so if you're going to charge $2,000 for it, charge $3,000 for it, because in most cases, if you haven't mathematically figured out what it's going to cost to do the project, and you're pulling a number out of thin air, it's way off. It's 30% too low. So
Yeah, especially if you're doing cost-based
yeah,
pricing, you've got to add some margin in there so that you're not
yeah,
shooting yourself in the foot later.
yeah,
And you're so right, Steve. There's so many free resources available. There's usually groups through your local chamber of commerce, and
yeah,
there are startup groups that meet virtually. You can find a meetup even. Just go on meetup.com, find
yeah,
groups of people that are in a similar situation. You could even host something so that you meet other people. Steve,
yeah,
you and I are both part of the Bureau of Digital. which has a
Yep.
ton of like-minded agency owners and creatives in there as well. That one's not free, but it's really not that much either.
It's not.
Um,
It's worth it
yeah,
for the networking. I
totally.
would throw out 2 other groups that offer similar community/mentorship for any stage owner. Creative Mornings is global, it's massive, it's awesome. It is based on just love for community, and it exudes that, and it's $8 a month or something silly like that, but if you're just starting out and you're a freelancer and you're trying to find people to bounce things off, Creative Mornings is great. AIGA is another one. They have a mentorship program that I've been honored to be part of the mentoring side of that, where it's people in different stages of their careers or people in different stages of their agencies looking for guidance. And so, between Bureau of Digital and these other, like, there's so many groups out there where you can just really, hey, what would you charge for this? Or how do I get to this spot? Or, all those kinds of questions that we all had.
Yeah, and it's really okay as well to not have everything figured out. You don't need to
Yeah.
go into these meetings acting like you know exactly what you're doing because everyone knows no one knows what they're doing. Everyone's just doing the best that they can.
Yeah.
And by asking, by brainstorming with people in similar situations, you will get more value and be able to proceed more quickly in what
Yeah.
you're trying to achieve in your agency.
Yeah. Agreed. I love that. It's so true. Everybody's just trying to figure it out and do the best that they can. And, when you're put on the spot by a client, let me do some math and I'll get back to you. Let me do some research and I'll get back to you. You know, we all think we've got to have all the answers all the time, and it's okay to not. It's okay to say, I'm going to look into that and get right back to you. And so you don't have to be, the smartest person in the room.
Nope, absolutely not.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, any other thoughts on strategies for reluctant sellers as we wrap up our time today?
Gosh, we covered a lot. And I think that's pretty comprehensive. And so prior to this, was kind of jotting down some things of what we can talk about. And I think we pretty much nailed it all. I mean, I'm a big fan of relationship build selling and not actually selling. I think the services that agencies provide, the true value of them need to be based on relationships and trust. And historically, when agencies look back over the book of work that they've done, they'll see that the clients that really trust them and really let them do their work and really build a relationship with that's the work that gets done the most. And those are the relationships that last the longest, as opposed to I'm going to sell, which basically means I'm going to trick you into buying and hiring me. Nobody wins there. So it's not worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. Trust is critical. It's the most
Yeah.
important factor. So, whatever you need to do in your biz dev process to build trust, do that. That's going to be
Yeah.
the most important thing. Yes, it takes time, but account for the time that it's going to take. Don't grow too quickly. Don't get too excited about what you have now and think that it's going to be all rainbows and butterflies. Make sure that you've got an actual runway as you're building and selling. So, yeah, definitely agree with
Yeah.
you there, Steve.
This was great.
Awesome.
I appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, I appreciate you brainstorming, sharing your wisdom, and having this chat with me. And if anyone else wants to listen more to what you have to say, can you tell us about the podcast that you have, Steve?
Sure. Bite-sized agency briefs is a similar format to yours. I'm bringing on experts who have information about agencies running better and growing. And so we're 25 minutes, so you can fit it in between meetings or on a lunch break and still have time to refill your coffee before the next meeting. But you can find it at agencyoutsight.com/podcast or on any of your platforms that are out there.
Awesome, Steve. I know that as much advice and as many perspectives as you can hear as an agency owner, the better. So I definitely recommend you hop
Yeah.
over to Steve's podcast as well. Squeeze a few of those episodes in as you're even driving home. Squeeze it in while you're driving too. Thank you again to Steve for coming on RecalibrAgency to share your thought on how to deal with the challenge of overcoming resistance to selling. Now, there are a couple key takeaways that I do want to draw attention back to as we round out this episode. The first is that you cannot not do biz dev. You have to intentionally do it, consistently make time for it. And if you're struggling to do it for yourself, you need to be intentional about either developing existing team members to fulfill that role, hiring someone who's going to be a rock star in an organized way, or outsource it even to make sure that your biz dev is happening. If you're really feeling uncomfortable with it, you can also find resources and develop yourself, because you, as the founder, have a tremendous amount of authority in the space and in your conversations with prospects. So ideally, it's going to be you as you're a smaller agency. And then as you grow your agency, you'll start to bring in others to help you with business development. But for starters, it really should be you. You should be finding resources and building up your confidence and repertoire to be able to do biz dev in the industry vertical in with the specialty that you have, finding specific ways to become relevant in your space. The second takeaway is that you really need to track your biz dev activities and then go back to it. Don't just leave your notes in a contact record in your CRM waiting for something magical to happen. Go back to what you've noted and take action on it. Set reminders for yourself to follow up with people and make sure that you're reaching out to previous customers as well, continuing to have touch points so that you're accessible and top of mind for customers when they have additional project needs. You can assign someone to be kind of an inside sales person that manages those existing relationships. That might be someone different than account managers. It really will depend on the model that your agency is operating under. And then finally, block out time to intentionally conduct business development activities and sales activities. You don't want to be responding just to the daily urgent things that pop up. You want to make sure that you're being intentional about the important stuff so that it doesn't actually become one of those urgent things that you then have to deal with. And if you let it go too long, sales will definitely become urgent. So make sure that you're setting aside time and respecting that time. Set boundaries in place. Don't pick a time that people need to. Make sure that you're holding yourself accountable to deliver on sales activities, just like you would any other employee. So that rounds our episode out today. My name is Danielle Photo. I'm your host of RecalibrAgency. Until next time, go get some biz dev done.